The great academy hall was silent except for the echo of footsteps. Tall pillars rose high, glowing with blue light. Rows of alien students filled the seats, their skin in many colors: green, silver, and even golden. All eyes looked at the stage where the professor stood. He was an old alien with gray scales and long, sharp eyes. His robe shimmered with symbols of knowledge. When he raised his hand, the hall grew silent, so silent that one could hear a breath. "Today," the professor began, his voice heavy with warning, "we speak of the most dangerous thing ever carried from Earth. A thing so small, yet so deadly, that it has killed countless lives. The humans call it the fruit of death." Gasps filled the room. Young aliens shivered. Some covered their mouths with trembling hands. The professor's tone was serious, almost like a priest warning of a curse. He lifted a hologram above his hand, showing a bright red sphere. It glowed under the light. "This," he declared, "is the death fruit." The hologram spun slowly. The fruit looked harmless, even beautiful. Smooth red skin, shining like a jewel. Yet the professor's words painted it as a weapon. He explained that the fruit was filled with hidden poison. A single bite, he said, could stop the heart. Even the smell was dangerous, he warned. Students leaned forward, their eyes wide. Some wrote notes with glowing pens. Others whispered, fear in their voices. One alien said, "How could humans survive near such danger?" Another muttered, "Maybe this is why humans are so feared. They live with death every day." The professor nodded gravely. "Exactly. They have learned to endure what would kill us. But for any other race, this fruit means certain death." His words echoed, and the fear grew heavier, almost like a thick fog covering the room. But at the very back row, hidden in the shadows, one student was not shaking. He was not afraid. He was not even paying attention. He was chewing. The sound was soft, but in the silent hall it seemed loud. Crunch, crunch. The boy leaned casually against his seat, his face calm. He was human. His brown hair fell over his forehead, and his clothes were simple, unlike the shining robes of the others. He chewed slowly, as if he had all the time in the world. In his hand was something round, red, and shiny. It was the fruit, a fresh apple. The boy took another bite, the crisp sound echoing faintly. Juice shined on his lips. He chewed, swallowed, and leaned back as if nothing was wrong. To him it was normal. To him it was lunch. No one noticed, not yet. The aliens were too focused on the professor's terrifying words. The professor raised his hands higher, warning, "This fruit must never be touched. Even a single seed can end life in seconds. It is forbidden, dangerous, cursed." The hologram of the apple glowed brighter, floating over the stage like a ghost. The aliens stared in horror, but behind them the real thing was being eaten by human teeth. Crunch. Crunch. A silver-skinned alien turned her head slightly. For a second she thought she heard something strange. But when she glanced back, the human boy looked calm, his head bent low as if he was taking notes. She turned again to the stage, thinking it was nothing. But the apple in his hand was half gone. The professor's voice grew darker. He told stories of alien explorers who once touched the fruit and never returned. He spoke of entire research teams lost to its poison. The stories may have been old, twisted with fear, but the students believed. They always believed. The professor's word was law. "Remember," the professor said, his long eyes scanning the hall, "to see this fruit is to see death, and to taste it is to taste the end." The alien students held their breath. Some even shut their eyes. The silence was deep, and then another crunch. The human boy smiled faintly. He licked the juice from his fingers. For him, this was nothing more than a sweet fruit from home. But if anyone turned around, if anyone noticed, the truth would explode like fire. The bell rang softly, ending the lecture. Students began to rise, whispering in fear about the death fruit. None of them dared to think it could be near them. None dared to imagine a living being would eat it. But one alien girl, sitting 2 rows ahead of the boy, caught a faint smell. Sweet. Fresh. Not deadly at all. Her heart skipped. Slowly, carefully, she turned her head. Her eyes widened. There in the boy's hand was the red fruit itself. He bit again, his eyes calm, his lips wet with juice. Her breath caught. Should she scream? Should she run? Or should she stay silent? The lecture was over. Students left in groups, talking in low voices. But she did not move. Her eyes stayed fixed on the human in the back row. He stood, stretched his arms, and dropped the apple core into his bag. He walked out slowly, without fear, without care. The alien girl's mind raced. The death fruit, the forbidden fruit, the cursed fruit, and yet he had eaten it alive. The professor's warning still echoed in her head. But now she had seen something impossible. She whispered to herself, how can he live? The mystery had begun. The academy halls buzzed with nervous voices after the lecture. Alien students walked in groups, their steps quick, their whispers sharp. The professor's warning about the death fruit clung to their minds like a shadow. Some repeated his words with fear. Others drew strange signs on their chests to keep evil away. Can you believe it? One green-skinned alien hissed to his friend. Just a bite and you die. Another, his silver skin glowing under the hall lights, replied, it is worse than poison. They say even the smell can kill. Everywhere the story grew darker, like fire feeding on dry wood. But one student heard something else. The alien girl from the lecture, the one who had caught the sweet scent, walked alone, her mind racing. She was small compared to the others, with pale blue skin and bright violet eyes. Her name was Lyra. She had been taught all her life that the death fruit was forbidden, untouchable, cursed. Yet she had seen the impossible. She had seen the human boy eat it as if it were bread. Her hands trembled as she walked. She remembered the juice shining on his lips, the way he chewed slowly, calmly, like there was no danger at all. How could it be? Was the professor lying? Or was the boy some kind of monster who could survive poison? Lyra pressed her hand against her chest. Her heart beat too fast. All around her, students kept whispering. The death fruit killed whole expeditions. Humans hide it in their lands to trap us. No alien should even touch it. Lyra wanted to shout, but I saw him eat it. Yet the words stuck in her throat. If she told them, no one would believe her. They would call her crazy, or worse, they would go after the boy. Her eyes flicked down the hall. There he was. The human boy walked calmly, carrying his simple bag. He moved differently from the others, slower, quieter, but with strange confidence. His eyes were brown, warm, but unreadable. His name, she had heard once, was Daniel. Unlike the others, he never joined groups. He always sat alone. And now Lyra knew his secret. She followed him without meaning to. Her feet moved on their own, keeping a safe distance. He left the main hall and walked through the long glass corridor that showed the stars outside. Shadows fell over him, the faint light outlining his shape. Daniel hummed softly like he was enjoying himself. He reached into his bag. Lyra's breath caught. Slowly he pulled something out, another apple. Her eyes widened. He has more? He polished it against his sleeve, then took a loud bite. Crunch. The sound echoed down the corridor. Juice dripped onto his hand. Lyra's pulse quickened. Every bite he took was against everything she had ever been told. It was impossible. Yet here he was, alive, smiling faintly. She pressed herself against the wall, hiding in the shadows. Part of her wanted to run. Part of her wanted to confront him. But curiosity burned hotter than fear. When Daniel reached the outer gardens, he sat beneath a tall crystal tree. He leaned back, chewing slowly, looking at the stars as if nothing in the world could harm him. Lyra's feet carried her closer. She hid behind one of the crystal trunks, her eyes fixed on him. At last she spoke. Her voice was soft, trembling, but it carried through the still air. You're insane. Daniel froze. He turned his head slightly, his brown eyes finding hers in the shadows. He didn't look surprised. In fact, he looked almost amused. Am I? He asked. His voice was calm, smooth, not a trace of fear. He took another bite of the apple in front of her. Crunch. Lyra's hands tightened into fists. That's the death fruit. It should have killed you already. He smiled faintly. Funny. On Earth we call it an apple. Children eat it every day. Her stomach twisted. His words broke the wall of fear inside her mind. How could that be true? Could a thing so cursed really be so? Ordinary? You lie, she whispered. The professor said. The professor, Daniel interrupted softly, doesn't know everything. His calmness cut deeper than any sharp word. He tossed the apple core into his bag and wiped his hand. Sometimes, he added, looking straight into her eyes, fear makes people blind. They see death where there is only life. Lyra's breath caught. She wanted to argue, to scream at him. But the memory of the sweet smell filled her nose again. It hadn't smelled deadly. It had smelled inviting. He stood adjusting his bag. You should try one. he said almost playfully. Then you'll know the truth. Her eyes widened. Never. Daniel only shrugged and walked past her, calm as ever. The crunch of his boots on the floor echoed until he vanished into the shadows. Lyra stood frozen. Her heart thundered. His words kept repeating in her mind, "You should try one." She looked around, making sure no one saw. Then slowly, with shaking hands, she pulled something from her own bag. Her fingers closed around the round, smooth surface she had stolen during the lecture. An apple. Her breath trembled. She stared at it, the red skin glowing faintly under the lights. Her hand shook as she whispered, "Could it really be life, and not death?" The fruit was heavy in her hand. The decision was heavier in her heart. Night fell over the academy. The stars burned bright through the glass domes, painting silver light across the gardens. Most students had gone to their rooms whispering about exams and warnings of the death fruit, but Lyra could not sleep. The apple sat on her desk, glowing red under the soft lamp. She stared at it for hours, her hands curled tightly in her lap. The professor's words clashed with Daniel's calm voice in her mind. "One bite can kill you. Children eat it every day." Which one was true? Which one was a lie? She reached for the fruit, fingers trembling but pulled back again. Fear wrapped around her like a chain. She pressed her face into her hands, whispering, "Why did I take it? Why can't I stop thinking about it?" The memory of Daniel's smile returned, calm, unshaken, confident. He had eaten the fruit like it was nothing. Lyra's chest tightened. If he was lying, why was he still alive? She couldn't take it anymore. She needed answers. She needed the truth. Clutching the apple, she slipped from her room into the night. The halls were quiet, her footsteps soft against the glowing floor. She carried the fruit in her bag, hiding it as if it were a forbidden weapon. Her heart pounded as she reached the outer courtyard. The wind was cool, carrying faint scents of the crystal trees. And there, sitting by the fountain, was Daniel. He was alone, as always, leaning back with his arms folded behind his head. His bag lay open beside him, and Lyra saw the faint red glow of more apples inside. She froze. "He has so many." Daniel's eyes opened slowly. He looked at her with calm curiosity, like he had expected her. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked softly. Lyra's throat went dry. She walked closer, clutching the apple in her bag. You need to tell me the truth." Daniel sat up, resting his elbows on his knees. "About what?" "You know what," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but her eyes burned with determination. "The fruit. Why are you still alive?" He tilted his head, studying her. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out another apple. He held it up to the moonlight, its red skin shining. Without hesitation, he took a bite. Crunch. Juice glistened on his lips. He chewed slowly, never breaking eye contact with her. Lyra's breath caught. Every sound of his chewing felt like thunder in the silent courtyard. Finally, he swallowed and said, "Because the fruit isn't death. It's life." Her hands shook. She pulled her own apple from her bag and held it out. "Then why does everyone say it kills?" Daniel's eyes softened. "Fear," he said simply. "Stories grow bigger with time. Fear makes people believe lies. Maybe one alien got sick after touching it and the story spread until it became a curse." Lyra shook her head. "But the professor believes what he was told," Daniel said calmly. "But belief isn't always truth." Her fingers tightened around the apple. She wanted to throw it away, but she also wanted to know. Curiosity burned stronger than fear now. She raised it to her lips but stopped, her heart pounding too hard. Daniel smiled faintly. "Don't do it because of me. Do it because you want the truth." Lyra's breath trembled. The fruit's sweet scent filled her nose. She thought of all the years she had been taught to fear it. She thought of the whispers, the warnings, the curses, and then she thought of Daniel, alive, smiling, his calm voice steady. Slowly, she bit into the apple. Crunch. Juice spilled across her tongue. Her eyes widened. It was sweet, so sweet it almost hurt. Her knees weakened. She waited for the burning pain, for the poison, for the end. But nothing happened. Her chest rose and fell. Her heart raced, but not from death. From shock, from life. She swallowed. The taste lingered fresh and alive. Daniel chuckled softly. "Not so deadly, is it?" Tears filled her eyes. She shook her head. It's beautiful." For a moment, silence stretched between them. The fountain bubbled softly. The stars glimmered above, and Lyra felt her world shifting. Everything she had believed, everything she had feared was a lie. She looked at Daniel, her voice trembling. Why would they hide this? Why would they keep the truth from us? His gaze darkened. Because truth gives power. If they can make you fear something harmless, then they can control you. That's how fear works. Her breath caught again. The professor's stern face flashed in her mind. The endless warnings, the strict rules, the fear drilled into every lesson. Could it all be a lie? Daniel leaned closer, his voice low. Now you know, but you must choose. Will you keep silent or will you speak? Lyra's heart pounded. She felt the weight of the apple in her hand, the sweetness still on her tongue. For the first time in her life, she had tasted freedom. She began, but her words caught in her throat. Daniel stood, swinging his bag over his shoulder. Think carefully. Some truths are heavy. Once spoken, they can't be taken back. He walked into the shadows, leaving her by the fountain, holding the half-eaten fruit. Lyra stared at it, the bite mark shining under the moonlight. She whispered to herself, "What have I done?" The night felt heavier. The truth felt dangerous. And Lyra knew her life would never be the same again. Lyra could not sleep that night. She lay awake in her narrow dorm bed, staring at the ceiling as the taste of the fruit still lingered on her tongue. Sweet. Crisp. Alive. It was nothing like the poison she had been warned about all her life. Every breath reminded her that she was still here, still breathing, still alive, but her heart would not calm. The professor's words echoed, "One bite is death. The fruit is cursed." Yet she had taken a bite and the world had not ended. Her hands pressed against her chest again and again, waiting for pain, waiting for darkness, but none came, only the pounding of a living heart. When morning came, she looked in the mirror. Her violet eyes were the same. Her blue skin had not turned gray with sickness. She touched her face almost in disbelief. She was fine. Better than fine. She felt stronger somehow, as if the fruit had given her new energy. But fear returned quickly. What if someone found out? What if they searched her room and saw the half-eaten apple on her desk? She quickly wrapped it in cloth and hid it deep inside her drawer. Her secret, her sin. The academy halls were crowded that morning. Rumors spread faster than the rising sun. The professor had announced a special lecture for the evening. Students whispered in groups, their voices filled with excitement and dread. "They say he will show the fruit itself," one alien hissed. "Not just a hologram?" Another gasped. "Yes, a real one. He has kept it locked away for years, sealed inside a case." Lyra's stomach turned. A real apple, displayed before everyone as a symbol of death. But she knew the truth now. She had eaten it and nothing had happened. She looked around at the whispering faces and felt a chill. Should she tell them? Should she stand up in the lecture and say, "You're wrong. It isn't deadly"? But then she imagined the gasps, the screams, the professor's furious eyes. She imagined being dragged out, accused of blasphemy, of breaking every law of the academy. No, she could not speak. Not yet. Her thoughts kept circling back to Daniel. The way he had looked at her. Calm, knowing, as if he carried the truth of 1,000 secrets. He had not lied. He had not been afraid. She wanted to ask him more, but he was nowhere to be seen that morning. He was a shadow in the academy, appearing only when he wished. The day passed slowly, every tick of the crystal clock pulling her closer to the evening lecture. Lyra's chest grew tight with each passing hour. By the time the sun dipped below the glass horizon, she was trembling. She joined the crowd of students marching into the great hall. The air was thick with fear. Hundreds of eyes turned to the stage where the professor stood tall, his robe heavy with glowing symbols. Behind him was a sealed crystal case glowing faintly. Inside, resting on black velvet, was a single red apple. The students gasped as one. Some covered their mouths. Others stepped back. The fruit seemed to radiate power, as if it were a living flame that could burn them all. "This," the professor boomed, "is the death fruit itself. For centuries it has brought only death to those who touched it. And yet humans keep it close, eat it without care. That is why they are feared. That is why they are dangerous." Lyra's hands tightened on her knees. She stared at the apple in the case and felt her heart scream. "It isn't true. I ate one, I lived." Her pulse thundered in her ears, but then a sound cut through the silence. Crunch. Every head turned. At the back of the hall, Daniel sat calmly in his seat. In his hand was another apple, fresh and bright. He took a slow bite, his eyes fixed on the professor. Juice dripped down his fingers and he chewed with deliberate calmness. Gasps filled the room. Aliens screamed. A few fainted. Others ran for the doors. The hall erupted into chaos. The professor froze, his eyes wide with horror. "No, impossible!" he cried. "You fool! You will die." But Daniel only swallowed, his face calm. "Or maybe," he said softly, his voice carrying through the chaos. "You will learn." Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Her secret burned inside her chest. She wanted to stand, to shout the truth, but her body refused. Fear held her in place. She looked at Daniel and their eyes met across the room. His calm gaze seemed to ask her one question. "Will you speak too?" The professor slammed his hands on the podium. "Seize him," he roared. Guards rushed forward, their armor shining, their weapons humming. Daniel stood, wiping the juice from his hand. He raised the apple high for all to see. "Fear has blinded you," he declared. "This fruit is not death, it is life. And I am living proof." The room erupted again. Voices shouted, some in fear, some in doubt. The professor's face twisted with fury, and Lyra sat frozen, her hand pressed to the hidden drawer in her mind where her secret lived. She had eaten the fruit. She knew the truth. But could she find the courage to admit it? The apple in the crystal case glowed under the lights. The apple in Daniel's hand dripped with juice, and the future of the academy balanced on the edge of truth and fear. The great hall shook with voices. Screams, gasps, and hurried footsteps filled the air. Some students pressed themselves against the walls. Others pushed for the exits, desperate to escape what they believed was certain death. The professor stood frozen on stage, his sharp eyes wide with disbelief. His long gray fingers trembled as he pointed at Daniel. "You dare mock this academy," he roared. "Put down that cursed thing before it kills us all." But Daniel only stood calmly, the half-eaten apple still in his hand. He looked out across the crowd, unshaken, even as fear spread like fire around him. Slowly, he raised the fruit higher as if daring every alien in the room to watch. Crunch. The sound echoed. Daniel bit again, chewing slowly, letting the juice drip down his fingers. The silence that followed his bite was louder than any scream. Hundreds of alien eyes stared in shock, waiting for him to collapse, waiting for the poison to strike him dead, but he didn't fall. He swallowed, licked the juice from his lips, and smiled faintly. "This," he said clearly, his voice calm yet strong, "is not death." The professor's face twisted in fury. "Lies, tricks. He has poisoned himself, and soon he will pay the price." But the seconds passed. Daniel stood tall, breathing steady, alive. Some students whispered, doubt creeping into their voices. A few even leaned forward, eyes wide with curiosity rather than fear. "No," one alien muttered. "He should be dead already." "Maybe the human is immune," another whispered. "Maybe only he can survive it." The professor slammed his hand on the podium. "Silence. Do not listen to his madness." His voice cracked like thunder, but the hall no longer felt safe under his control. Doubt was spreading too fast. Then from the center rows, Lyra's heart pounded. She could no longer stay silent. She rose to her feet, her body trembling, her violet eyes burning with hidden truth. Her voice shook but carried through the hall. "He's not lying." Every head turned. The professor froze. "What did you say?" he demanded. Lyra's throat tightened, but she forced the words out. "He's not lying. I ate it too." Gasps ripped through the hall. A wave of shock rolled over the students. Some shouted in disbelief. Others clutched their robes as if her words were a curse. The professor's face darkened, his scales shivering with rage. "Blasphemy," he thundered. "You dare spread such lies in my hall?" Lyra's hands shook, but she lifted her chin. "I ate the fruit. Last night. I am still here. I'm alive." The hall erupted into chaos again. Shouts and whispers clashed, filling the air like storms. Some voices screamed, "Impossible!" Others cried, "She is lying." But a few began to ask, what if she is telling the truth? Daniel stepped forward, his calm gaze sweeping the crowd. "You see?" he said softly. "Two of us stand here alive. The fruit is not death. Fear is the poison. Lies are the poison." The professor's robe swirled as he descended the steps of the stage. His eyes glowed with fury. "I will not let children destroy centuries of knowledge." "Guards, seize them both!" Armed guards stormed forward, their weapons humming with energy. The crowd shrank back in fear. Lyra's legs shook as she saw them approach. For a moment she wanted to run, but then Daniel stepped beside her. He did not move, did not flinch. His calm strength steadied her. "Stand," he whispered to her. Truth must not bow. The guards surrounded them, but hesitation flickered in their eyes. They had heard Daniel's words. They had seen him eat the apple and survive. They had heard Lyra confess. The fear in the air was not as strong now. Doubt had entered even their hearts. One guard muttered almost to himself, "If it is death, why are they still breathing?" The professor heard it. His fury grew wilder. "Do not question me," he shouted. "Obey!" But the guard's hesitation spread to others. Students whispered louder now, doubt becoming courage. One silver-skinned alien shouted from the back, "Let them prove it again." "Yes," another cried. "Let us see." The hall roared with voices demanding proof. The professor's command was breaking apart. He tried to silence them, but his voice was drowned by the noise. Daniel reached into his bag once more. He pulled out another apple and held it high. "Who dares to try?" he asked calmly. Silence fell for a moment. No one moved. Fear still clung tightly. But then Lyra lifted her apple again, the half-eaten one she had hidden in her robe. She raised it for all to see, her voice trembling but steady. "I already tried. And I lived." The crowd gasped again. Doubt had now turned into sparks of belief. Some students leaned forward, eyes hungry for the truth. The professor's hands shook. His voice cracked with rage. "Stop them. Stop this madness before it spreads." But it was too late. The lecture that was meant to strengthen fear had cracked open the first wall of truth. The professor's power was slipping, and the seed of doubt had already taken root. And in the center of it all, Daniel and Lyra stood side by side, holding the forbidden fruit that might change the galaxy forever. The great hall was no longer a place of order. It had become a storm. Voices clashed like thunder, some shouting in fear, others demanding proof. The professor's robe swirled as he tried to silence them, his sharp eyes blazing with fury. But the more he shouted, the less they listened. Lyra's heart pounded. She stood beside Daniel, clutching the half-eaten apple in her trembling hand. Her secret was no longer hers. Everyone knew. Everyone had heard her words. "I ate it. I lived." The professor pointed a long gray finger at her. His voice cracked like lightning. "You have been poisoned by lies. This human has filled your mind with tricks. You are cursed now. Soon you will fall." His words echoed through the hall, but Lyra forced herself to stand tall. Her legs shook, but her voice was steady. "I am not cursed. I am alive." She lifted the apple high, showing the bite mark glistening under the lights. "The fruit is not death." The hall exploded with noise again. Some students covered their ears, terrified to even look at the apple. Others leaned forward, eyes wide with wonder. Daniel stepped closer, his voice calm but strong. "Fear is the real poison here. You believe a story without proof. You let fear control you. But look at us, we are alive. This fruit is life, not death," the professor snarled. His scales shivered with rage. "Do not listen to him. Humans are liars. They are dangerous. This is how they will destroy us." His words shook many, and the room divided sharply. Some shouted, "The professor is right." Others cried out, "But we see the truth with our own eyes." The guards stood frozen, weapons in their hands, but their faces uncertain. One silver-skinned guard whispered to his partner, "They should be dead already." "Why aren't they?" The professor heard the doubt. His fury grew darker. He slammed his hand against the crystal case, shaking the apple inside. "This fruit killed our explorers. Entire teams never returned. How do you explain that?" Daniel's gaze did not falter. "Maybe they starved in your fear. Maybe they believed the lie so deeply that their own minds destroyed them. Fear can kill faster than any poison." The words cut through the air like a blade. Some students gasped, as if they had never thought of such a thing before. Whispers spread faster than the professor could silence. Lyra looked at the sea of faces, her classmates, her friends. Many were still trembling, still chained by fear, but in their eyes she saw something new: doubt. And doubt was the beginning of change. She raised her voice, though it shook. "I believed the lie too, all my life. But last night I took a bite. I thought I would die. I thought I would never open my eyes again. But I woke up stronger. The fruit is not death, it is truth." The crowd fell into silence for a moment. The words sank deep, heavier than any shout. Then a voice rose from the crowd. A young alien with bronze skin stepped forward, his eyes uncertain. "Give it to me," he said softly. "I want to know." Gasps filled the hall. The professor's face twisted. "No, do not touch it."
"It will kill you."
But the boy's voice grew firmer. "I would rather know the truth than live in fear." Daniel held out another apple from his bag. The bronze-skinned boy took it, his hands shaking. The entire hall leaned forward, breathless. He lifted it to his mouth. His eyes squeezed shut. Crunch. The sound shattered the silence. Juice ran down his chin. He chewed, trembling, waiting for death. The hall waited with him. Seconds dragged on like hours, but nothing happened. He swallowed. He opened his eyes. He stood alive, gasps turned into shouts. "He's alive! It didn't kill him!" Students jumped to their feet, voices colliding in chaos. Some shouted with joy, others with terror, but the truth could no longer be hidden. The professor staggered back, his authority crumbling before his eyes. "No, no, this cannot be. You will see, the curse will come. It will come." His voice cracked with desperation, no longer with power. Daniel placed a steady hand on Lyra's shoulder. "The truth is free now," he whispered. "It cannot be chained again." Lyra's violet eyes burned with new fire. She looked at the crowd, at the bronze-skinned boy still alive, and felt strength rise inside her. For the first time in her life, she was not afraid. The hall trembled with voices, but the storm had changed. It was no longer fear alone. It was hope. It was courage. The professor shouted until his voice broke, but few listened anymore. The guards lowered their weapons, their eyes fixed on the living boy. The spell of fear had cracked, and no amount of shouting could mend it. Lyra raised the apple again. "This is not death," she declared. "This is life. And if they lied about this, what else have they lied about?" Her question cut through the hall like fire. Silence followed, heavy and dangerous. The professor's face drained of color. For the first time, he looked afraid. The great hall no longer belonged to the professor. His booming voice, once law, was swallowed by the cries of his own students. The bronze-skinned boy who had taken the bite stood tall, chest rising and falling, alive. The apple's sweet scent still lingered in the air, mixing with the whispers and shouts of disbelief. "It didn't kill him," one alien cried. "He's standing right there," another shouted. The guards who had once marched forward now stood frozen, their weapons lowered, their eyes darting between the professor and the growing number of students who demanded truth. Fear had broken. The chain that bound their minds had cracked wide open. Daniel stood calm in the storm, his brown eyes steady. The half-eaten apple still glistened in his hand. He did not raise his voice, but his words carried. "The truth is simple. This fruit is life, not death. It has always been so. Only your fear made it otherwise." Lyra's violet eyes burned with conviction. She stepped forward beside him, lifting her own half-eaten apple high. Her voice rang through the chaos. "They lied to us. For years they kept us afraid. They told us the fruit was poison when it was not. They wanted control. They wanted obedience." The words cut deep. The students looked at one another, their fear shifting into anger, into betrayal. Some shook their heads, whispering, "How much else have they hidden from us?" The professor staggered back toward the stage, his robe swirling around him. His once powerful voice cracked with desperation. "Fools, you do not understand. This is a trick. The fruit is cursed, its poison is slow. They will die, just wait." But his words no longer carried the weight they once did. His sharp eyes darted nervously around the hall, but he saw no obedience left, only doubt. His authority, built over years, was slipping through his fingers like sand. "No," he cried, his hands trembling. "You must listen to me. I am your guide, your protector. Without me you will fall into ruin." Daniel stepped closer to the stage, his footsteps calm, unhurried. His voice was quiet, but it silenced the room. "The galaxy does not fall because of truth. It falls because of lies." The professor froze. His face twisted with rage and fear, but no words came. Then it happened. One by one, students began to rise. A green-skinned alien pulled an apple from Daniel's bag and took a bite. Crunch. The hall gasped again. He swallowed. He lived, another followed. A silver-skinned girl bit into the fruit with trembling hands. She too lived, the dam had broken. Fear shattered completely. Soon the sound of crunching filled the hall. Dozens of students, once terrified, now ate the forbidden fruit, each bite another nail in the coffin of the old belief. The professor fell to his knees. His voice broke. No, stop. You'll all die." His words were weak, his power gone. He looked like a shadow of the towering figure who had once ruled their minds. Lyra felt tears in her eyes. Not of fear, but of release. She had lived her whole life under the shadow of a lie. Now the shadow was gone and the light was blinding. She turned to Daniel, her voice trembling but strong. "You changed everything." Daniel shook his head. "Not me, truth did. It only needed someone brave enough to taste it." His eyes flicked toward her. "And you were brave." The students crowded around, their voices rising. Some laughed with joy, tasting freedom for the first time. Others shouted angrily about the years they had lost to fear. But all agreed on one thing: the death fruit was no death at all. One student raised his voice over the noise. "If they lied about the fruit, what else have they lied about?" The question rippled through the hall like thunder. Silence fell again, heavy and dangerous. Eyes turned toward the professor, still kneeling, still trembling. He did not answer. He could not. Lyra stepped forward, her apple raised high. "Then we will find out. No more fear. No more blind obedience. The truth belongs to us." The hall erupted in cheers this time, not of fear, but of defiance, of freedom. The sound shook the crystal walls and echoed into the night sky. The professor covered his face with his trembling hands. His reign was broken. His teachings were dust. Daniel looked up at the stars through the glass dome above. His voice was soft, meant more for himself than the crowd. "If one fruit can shatter a galaxy's fear, what will happen when they learn everything else about us?" Lyra stood beside him, her heart burning with courage. She knew the answer already. The galaxy would never be the same.